Hello and welcome back to the channel. Just a quick update on the progress of the 1/72 Tomcat. Really enjoying it actually. It's a really nice kit. Everything's going together really nicely. The parts are really precise. So it took me 2 days pretty much to work on the canopy section, on the cockpit section. Included 2 figures in the kit, so I've been doing those as well, painting those up. I was trying to sort of just get the cockpit area finished. There are a lot of little decals that come in the kit, and a lot of them are used in around the cockpit areas of the control panels, with a little bit of microset, quite a lot actually, of sole. I got them to conform down to the shapes really quite nicely over all of the control panels and buttons within the control surfaces inside. The instructions are really clear and precise. There's colour call outs for everything. There is a bit of an issue with that though, because Tamiya only list their own colours, and they do just spread across every colour available. So they'll use LPs, XFs and TSs, which are spray cans I think, which I don't use. I tend to just use the XF, Tamiya XF paints and Vallejos and AKs and other sorts of paints. I don't tend to use, I just use acrylics. I don't use solvent based stuff because it's in the home here. I just don't want the solventy smell. I've got the dogs and I've got Olivia, I just don't want that. So even if you extracted it, I think you'd still sort of get the lingering smell. I remember years ago working with the small enamels, and what we all did when we all started, and you know, you'd do some work and it'd just linger around the house for days. So I don't promote that whatsoever. The smell of the glues that I use, yeah, they have got smells to them, but that's sort of part of the hobby, isn't it? But I don't know. So anyway, the call outs, the colour call outs, I'll zoom in and we'll have a look at some of the parts that I've put together in a little while. Some of the colour call outs are a little bit misleading really, not so much on these. There's absolutely loads of them. So the front panel, the front page of the instructions, this is where it says paints required. Well, that's paints required for every scheme, so all the 5 schemes that are available within the kit. But you obviously don't need that. So with the one that I'm doing, the bounty hunters, you need to start painting separate parts of this before assembly, of course, because there's a lot of fine details and you'd never paint them or put the decals on stuff if you put it all together and just paint it all together anyway. So it's just fairly standard anyway. So colour call outs on this scheme, really the most important that I'm looking at the moment is for the underside, because I've got all the air intakes and lots of parts here that need to be done before I can progress and put the parts on. Underneath of those air intakes there's small little flaps which have been painted white on the inside, coloured, and then there's a masking piece that's put into the kit, this, which you have to cut around those lines, and it's basically little stickers that you put into place for masking to separate the colours on the insides of the air intakes, which are those. Sorry, the light's very directional towards my bench, it's not so good if I hold it close to me. So on the insides of those there's a shape which is a white, where white inside meets the fuselage colour. So the fuselage colour is going to be, what they suggest is LP37. Now I've looked at different notes of mine and references and colours that are available, and 37 LP 37, which is a light ghost grey. I'm reckoning if I go 1 part sky grey, which is XF19, to 3 parts flat white F2, that'll be fairly close to that colour. The top colours, the darker, there's 3 colours. So you've got the light colour, you've got the mid sort of range colour, which is LP36. Well, again, LP36 is dark ghost grey. So I'm going to go 1 part light grey XF66 to 1 part dark sea grey XF54 to 3 parts flat white XF2. And then the other darker grey that you'll see, which is on the top surfaces, the sort of sea grey, the bluey sort of grey. Oh, be careful, I'm not knocking around there. Is LP15, the INJ grey XF91 I'm going to use. So that's just the brief, the basic colours that I'm going to put on. Obviously I'm going to pre-shade stuff and build those colours up and put a model in and underneath of the paint first before I start applying the top coat colour. But that's my basic ideas on those, following the instructions for some of the internal parts with the jet engines and stuff like that. They really chuck the colours around there. So these colours are 1 part X31 to 1 mixed X31 to X32, which is titanium silver and titanium gold. Those 2 little colours, lovely colours. Mix those in equal parts. There's some very careful painting to be done there. XF2 on the inside, so there's white stripes on the inside. Now these are beautifully detailed, and the mouldings are there, and every detail of that is on there, so it's going to take a lot of careful painting to do that. Whether I airbrush them white, there are decals to go in between, so you do the titanium colours, and then it looks like there's decals that go into the little spiky bits, the little lines. So that's highlighted with decal 251, so there's going to be a lot of separate little decals on the sheet to go around there. That's an interesting way of doing it, why not? The mounts for the jets that go onto the actual aircraft, so the aircraft itself, the fuselage, will be in its appropriate colours, and then X11, which I think is black, TS20, X11 is aluminium silver, and TS29, when that's a semi-gloss black. So I can do that with semi-gloss black in the Tamiya colours anyway. So that's it, that's where I'm at. I've got a load of little parts cut out. We'll have a look on the bench now and see what I'm up to. So a lot of work went into the canopy. It's a shame you can't really get it. I'll try and take some better photos and put them up separately. But I've enclosed the fuselage section over it now, the nose part over it now, and the side is pre-painted into the landing gear bay in there. XF2 white with some little details picked out in there. The pipe work and stuff, that's ready. That'll have to be masked over before we overspray. I like the way that they've done the nose separate to the rest of the fuselage. That's gone together really, really nicely. Canopy to go on there eventually, a long way off yet, but really, really impressed with how that looks. I don't know if you can see much detail in there, but I'm really quite pleased with it. I don't know if you can see the 2 little figures in the background there. At the moment they've got cocktail sticks up their but they are looking quite well. There are decals. I can zoom to this. There are decals on the helmet again. I'll take some More close-up pictures of this. Yeah, they're really accurate. They're really nice little figures. I hope they'll fit in there well. They're in different poses, so the pilot's got his hand on the control stick, and navigator's got his just hands on his legs. But hopefully they'll fit in really nicely. Really nice little detail of the oxygen mask running up to the helmet. And that's they're really nice, really nicely done. They should look really good when seated inside of there. I'm not going to put those in yet because we need to mask all over the top of for the canopy to paint the fuselage and that, and then there is then a top deck section that just slots, which I pre-painted. That's in semi-gloss black, and that part will just fit. Everything fits so nicely, and it just drops into position over the top and seals everything in, ready for the canopy to go on. But I won't put that on until I've painted the fuselage, and then I'll get a nice crisp line down the side down there then. Say I've got all the little parts cut out. This is what I'm going to be working and painting on now. So here's the fuselage. As far as I've got, it's got the quite a smart mechanism inside with these that allow you to fold the wings. They do operate in timing together. I won't be doing that. Once I've built the plane, I should probably have it in its wings out position, and the reviews say that the fit is not great of the movable parts, so maybe just to make sure it's a decent fit, I may glue it all in yet. And again, on the back where the fins are, there a little rubber things in there that push in there, but again, I might not do that. I might just sort of glue those fins into position. Yeah, very nice thing. So the underside, really nicely detailed. Little panels now. There's quite a few panels that I have added on now to sort of try and do it, so then I can paint the whole thing to the best I can, and then and add the contrasting coloured details then, instead of trying to cut them in. So basically try and assemble as much of this fuselage as I can get away with now. So in there you'll see these little flaps, these little air intake flaps there within the air intakes. That has to remain white and underneath of those, and then this section becomes the same colour as the underside of the aircraft. The inside of those remain white, other than the mask line that I've discussed, and then they get fitted on whichever way they go on. Something like that, I should mention. Like I say, everything's such a positive fit with the Tamiya. So when you look in there, you will see the flaps open, and some other bits and pieces, and that will obviously all be painted on the inside of there as well. And then you've got these really nice covers that go on, so I need to get that painted. I need to get the insides, this surface, painted to the right colour. Then I can add those on. Then I can add all the rest of these like small little trim parts that go in just to cover up joints. Really nicely done. Really nicely done. Glue all that in, and then mask up these areas which are white, and then think about putting a primer down, some pre-shading and stuff like that eventually, once I haven't mixed the colours or anything yet. I'm a long way off doing that, but you need to prime a lot of that. So that's how the underside is kind of looking. I've painted those sections white on the inside before I put the fuselage together, and again there's some white in there which will be visible when you look up through in some of the open port doors and stuff when the model's finished. So I've tried to put a finish in there ahead of all of that. All the internals of the jets, so these air intakes have those somehow actual, and then these really nicely moulded. It's a shame they haven't gone all the way through, but then there'd be nothing to see beyond that point anyway, so it's kind of pointless. But I suppose in the future an upgrade that's going to be photo etched or resin or 3D printed or whatever, but for now that's good enough detail inside the actual thrusters. And it's quite a sequence to build these parts up, because there's an angle where these lines are, white and titanium lines are on the inside. I don't know if you can see any of this, but there's components that they'll go into those little ring sections, they'll fit inside of that, then that goes onto that, then that slides into that, which will be black, and then the whole thing then slides into the back. So I don't need to worry about fitting any of those. I've done a dry fit before I glued all of this bit together. I don't need to worry about that. They will go in afterwards. This whole section could go in separately afterwards. I won't be doing that once I've worked that front bit. The fit of this is just absolutely unbelievable. So you've got this notch on the side there that lines up with these angles on the side there, and the whole thing slides in and closes up perfectly, beautifully. No, that is pretty good. That is pretty good, that line there. I think with a little bit of glue and a nudge, I might just need to put a tiny little bit of putty in there, but nothing much really. This is going to be all the pylons running through there. You're only going to actually see a tiny amount of that. So so you can start to see the size of the plane building up. The 72nd, I mean, it's, you know, it's quite a sizable aircraft anyway, in reality. So that's where we are. These little components go on the front of the air intakes. They'll be in aluminium, and they get planted, they get glued on there. Can't really see that. I'll put those on after I've painted all of that, and it'll just make that little silver line pop then, and that'll look really good. I've cut some of the wings off the sprues. None of these are glued together yet. These are the rear upright fins and the rears. Really nicely detailed wings. They're hollow, so eventually, I think, I haven't really studied the instructions, but I think you need the wings folded back to be able to place in a wing. Maybe that's the wrong side. That feels more like it. Yeah, so then you see that this sort of rounded section goes inside of the fuselage, and when it's adjusted it just follows it around. So once they're both on, maybe the sort of size of it begins to look like a Tomcat, eh? So I'm going to carry on, do some painting. My bench is looking an absolute mess over there at the moment, so I need to have a quick tidy up over there. That was really just from the paints used on the inside of the cockpit. It was pretty intense, that was. So I'll have a tidy up, and then I'll carry on putting some primers on and getting some of these other small parts and stuff done, and we'll do another update shortly. I'll try and add some photos as well, sort of zoomed in pictures, and so you can see bits and pieces going on. Lovely, see you next time. Cheers.